In the worlds before Monkey, primal chaos reigned. Heaven sought order, but the phoenix can fly only when its feathers are grown. The four worlds formed again and yet again, as endless eons wheeled and passed. Time and the pure essences of heaven, the moisture of the earth, the powers of the sun and the moon, all worked upon a certain rock old as creation. And it became magically fertile. That first egg was named Thought. Tathagata Buddha, the father Buddha, said, "With our thoughts, we make the world." Elemental forces caused the egg to hatch. From it then came a stone monkey. The nature of monkey was irrepressible.
Born from an egg on a mountain top, the funkiest monkey that ever walked. He knew every magic trick under the sun, to tease the gods and everyone and have some fun. Monkey magic, 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 monkey magic.
Shalom and good day all, this is Tehillim29 back again for another DC comic review, but I think before I start this comic review, I think some things need to be cleared up, especially in regards to Monkey Prince. That's right, Monkey Prince is not a Japanese comic. To which a Japanese comic, as you soon learn in what I'm presenting here, as you can see in front of you right now, these are 3 stories that connect to 3 parts of Asia, and these parts of Asia being Japan, China, and Korea. Now, I'm going to point out something differently here, and I need to do this, because I've noticed someone call Monkey Prince a manga. It's not a manga. Or a manga, as it's normally called. Alright? On the left-hand side is something that is connected to Japanese comics. Alright, and I'm using this considering its size, and it also works well for the presentation here. And that is Shaman King. Of course, you can see the character in relation to this. In fact, that character is actually Chinese within the story of Shaman King. So I think it sort of works well with what I'm trying to address here. Now, moving into the middle here. Yes, I understand it's a DVD series, but what does this have to do with Chinese comics? Well, this series, this Blu-ray series, though it was done in Japan, or created in Japan, that's right, this series was created in Japan, but its source material actually comes from Chinese history, or Chinese mythology and history, and that is the Journey to the West. Now, these key characters will in some essence connect to the character of the Monkey Prince. Or these characters will connect to the character of the Monkey Prince, which is in DC Comics. Now, for last but not least, a Korean comic to which I have already reviewed the first omnibus already on my channel, and that is The Breakout. Now, this story, yes, even though, as you can see here, it's done through a Blaze manga, to which we know that manga is mainly used in reference to Japanese comics. In relation to this particular story, the creator of this story is actually of Korean descent. And I will admit that this story is worth the read. Now, the next thing that we need to get is the correct terms or pronunciations in relation to said comics. Now, the first one on the left, we know, which is connected to Japanese comics, which is manga. Now, the second one there, it sounds very similar to what the Chinese one does, but it's a little bit louder on the end. And that is a manhwa, right? This is the Korean, the manhwa. In regards to the Chinese, it's manhua, so it's a little bit more silent. So one heavier, one softer. And I thought I would use this for the first part before starting my comic review. I'll now stop here so you can see what's next, so I can move on to the next part. I hope you enjoyed this little section before the comic review, and it will give you a rough idea as to a better understanding as to which comic is from what part on a geographical scale, as to which story is from what part on the planet or on Earth. Shalom and welcome back. For after that small break in between that first part, it's now to move on to the review of this Chinese manhwa. And this is on Monkey Prints, and I must admit I did certainly enjoy this first issue by Jin Yang. And jumping into first things first, and that is the rating for each cover. Now, moving into the first cover, I give it a 7.5 out of 10, which is the one on the left here. I'll now pull out the middle cover. Now, this is the Art Germ variant of the Monkey Prints, to which I give it a 7.5 out of 10. And the last is the foil variant, to which it is exactly what it says. It is with a red envelope, or it is in a red envelope, to which it also has foil cover on the red envelope. To add on top of that, there is a comic that looks exactly the same as what you see on the envelope, to which I give an 8 out of 10. Now, I'll use the variant to show the internal art as well as cover things in relation to the story. So let's get things ready by covering some art around the beginning of the story, then the middle, and then finally the end, and then I'll get around to the rating of the story. One good thing about rating a first issue is that with first issues, you don't have to, well, cover the area of comic references. So as we jump to the beginning of the story, of course we have the character of Marcus, and of course an encounter with Batman with the family. But we also get a bit of a foreshadowing here to him becoming the Monkey Prince, as we know that the character of Monkey, or the character of Monkey is sort of like seen as a monkey, and we see that here with the toy here. You also see it earlier on the first page. Now this is sort of like the second and third pages. I'll now jump towards the middle. Now as we jump towards the middle of the story, we see that something has happened with Marcus at school, and we encounter Mr. Zhu, who we find out is practically Pigsy. Like if you have ever watched the Monkey Blu-ray set series, definitely worth the watch. Yes, the character is a bit of a perv because it's a part of the lore around the character. But yes, he also has a vow of celibacy, which means he's trying to reach enlightenment. And you can certainly see that this will probably happen with this character as well. So it'll be the character that represents the monkey or the monkey prince in relation to searching enlightenment. But in this character's case, he is already in the West, but what in turn is this character's enlightenment journey going to be? Or what will his growth journey consist of? Now, moving into the middle here, as we can see that his parents are working with some of the criminals in relation to Gotham City. One person pointed them out that they might actually be henchmen, which is a very fair possibility. Now, this is summing up towards the end. Of course, it's done a little bit differently in its presentation. And as you can see, we've got the monkeys and the Monkey King. And there's the Monkey King there saying something in Chinese. We still don't know what the translation of that is yet. But we do get Pigsy here giving Marcus the crown to be the Monkey Prince. Last but not least, we also learned that Damian Wayne is also here. So this probably won't be going up on the Super Sons one, but mainly in the Rainbow Press and Comics. Even though I'd like to do it, see what happens with the next few issues. Maybe I could add it as an additional. Doesn't mean it will go into Super Sons Fortress of Attitude. But it is really nice to see Damian Wayne in this story. And also with Batman 2. And also, on top of that, with the costume of his, which I really like. So, of course, we have Marcus, who has in turn changed into the Monkey Prince. And that's finishing all off with the internal art around the beginning, middle, and end. And for the art, I gave a 7.5 out of 10. Now it's time to jump in relation to the story. Seeing that we don't have to cover comic references, even though we do know that this character did show up in last year's Asian celebration, which they did. Even though if Gene wanted to do a connection to it, he could have easily done it, but seeing it's not in this one, I'm not really worried about it. I do think it is a pretty good first issue. And so we'll move on to the area of time, and we had later come up twice. I do feel later being used in a comic sometimes can be a little bit lazy from writers, and it really needs to stop. Now, I've got no problem with them like using next day, because it lets the reader know. So, in regards to later, what time is it later? Because when you mention later in a comic, what time exactly is later? Is it 10 a.m.? Is it 11 p.m.? When is later? Like, be a little bit more creative in that area. So no hate against the writer, because I actually quite enjoyed this first issue. And moving into the area of locations, which we got to see Marcus grow up in. We saw Gotham City, we saw Bloodhaven, we saw Opal City, we saw Keystone City. We also saw the Gotham City High School, so of course he ends up returning to Gotham City. And we also had elsewhere in Gotham City, so we have a bit of a undisclosed location in Gotham City. And last but not least, the Gotham City High School pool. The cast of characters consisting of Batman, Marcus's parents. We also had Riz, and that connects mainly to his high school experience. Then there's Marcus, his connection to Mr. Zhu, who we learn is Pigsy. Then we also learnt of Dr. Shugao Shen. We had Penguin, and we of course saw the Monkey King and Batman, and last but not least, Damian Wayne as Robin. For this story overall rating, I gave it a 7.5 out of 10. I am excited to read the next issue. Until then, let's keep it colourful and have yourself an awesome day.